leave Galen where she is or try for her to...
No, Galen's fine.
Can we use your phone?
All right, and action.
If you don't panic.
If you can hold your breath.
If you can hold your breath.
If you can hold
If you can hold your breath. Your breath.
If you can hold
If you can hold your breath.
Wentworth, let me remind you, dear boy, I have the gun. Haha, Excelsior. What's up, Harbor Fiends? It's your boy, Ricky Grimes. As always, Joe the psychologist. How are you, my brother? How you doing?
I am good. I'm good. I'm ready to talk this one. You know,
You can tell
because
I'm happy, right?
oh yeah. Well, I know this is one of your favorites. I mean, I saw this, of course, when it came out, and I've seen it so many fucking times. There's a lot of quotable things in this movie. And there's stuff that there's one story in here that even psychologically fucked me up. So yeah, can't wait.
This fucking movie is a classic. George A. Romero and Stephen King, really good friends too at the time. Interesting because if you look at the actors in this movie, it's littered with a lot of George A. Romero regulars and
Yep.
Hollywood A-listers where you would have thought they would do anything horror. A couple of them kind of denounced this movie. We'll get into that a little later. But my bro, are you ready for this one?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Creepshow, of course.
Let's go. EC Comics, a comic book publishing company running between the 1940s and 1950s, specializing in various genres including crime, romance, fantasy, and westerns. However, it was the horror genre that the company was best associated with. Famed illustrator Bernie Wrightson would become synonymous with the monster audience with his creepy artwork depicting death and the horrors of life. Titles like Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror would inspire a multitude of future writers, artists, and filmmakers. 1982. George A. Romero and Stephen King would bring to life the greatest homage to the horror printed medium that would go on to be a highly influential juggernaut within the film industry. With gorgeous makeup and effects by the legendary Tom Savini and superb cinematography from longtime Romero collaborator Michael Gornick, who would later go on to direct the sequel. The magnificent ensemble cast brings to life 5 separate stories of zombies, revenge, and flesh-craving insects. The film stars Ed Harris as Hank Blaine, Vivica Linfors as Aunt Bedelia, Warner Shook as Richard Grantham, Elizabeth Regan as Cass Blaine, John Lormer as Nathan Grantham, John Amplis as Nathan Grantham's corpse, Carrie Nye as Sylvia Grantham, Stephen King as Jordy Verrill, Leslie Nielsen as Richard Vickers, Ted Danson as Henry Wentworth, Galen Ross as Becky Vickers, Hal Holbrook as Henry Northrup, Fritz Weaver as Dexter Stanley, Adrienne Barbeau as Wilma Northrup, E.G. Marshall as Upson Pratt, Joe Hill as Billy, and Tom Atkins as Stan. Well, Joe the psychologist, this is the comic book horror show. This film has a lot of ties to comic books from yesteryear. A lot of books that, man, I wish they still made to this day. They kind of still do, but it ain't the same.
No.
Let's talk about the comic book ties that Creepshow has, because many are not aware of this, but there is a lot of inspiration behind this film. And if you see how it was produced, yeah, you can tell. You can see it all over the place. So, yeah, what's
I
up,
mean,
bro?
and that was on purpose. They purposely wanted the movie to look like some of the comic books that they were paying an homage to. They were from the 1950s. They were horror anthology books, so you got a bunch of different stories. And for this specific movie, the three that they had used: Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, and The Haunt of Fear. And when Romero went to use those, he specifically had Tom Savini as his choice to come in to help replicate what the comic books look like when he wanted to have them on the screen. So that's why Tom Savini was brought in to do a lot of the practical effects, besides obviously showing up at the end of the Garbage Man. But as you said, Tom works with George. But so that when George was putting this movie together, and that's what they wanted to replicate, I mean, it was Tom Savini that he went to help bring the pages to life the way they were done. I mean, again, this is a comic book horror show. Generally, we've discussed how they were based on a specific comic. Well, this movie is based on 3 different comic books.
Yeah, I love the fact that they replicated the comic book splash page so like fluidly and so organic into the actual film itself. The use of color. We just talked about this in Suspiria, I love the color in this movie. And again, the blues, the reds. We just talked about this.
Yep.
And it's funny because I just did a rewatch last night. And I'm looking at the colors. I'm like, is he trying to tell us a story with Nah. That's an Argento thing right there. Romero ain't that deep with this. But it doesn't need to be, because this film, I love it. It don't make you think. You're just watching it. It's a great time. Like Tom Atkins' character in the beginning is talking about, we got ghouls coming out of the cemeteries and meteorites. All of the stories in this movie are out of the book that the kid is reading in the beginning. Fun fact, you know who the kid is in the beginning, right?
He looked familiar, and I was trying to remember. I didn't look it up.
That's Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. He's an author. He wrote Lock and Key. If you're not aware of that, it's a really good horror series. A prolific horror writer in his own right, He's a very intelligent guy. I love listening to this guy talk horror. And you could tell he's Stephen King's son. I mean, and when I found out it was him years later, I'm like, holy shit, that was Joe Hill, the kid at the beginning. I hated that kid, by the way. So obnoxious. I was like, Tom Atkins deserved to slap that guy, bro.
Well, I mean, he was taking his comic book away. You don't take it.
Yeah, come on, man. Come on.
No, man.
All right, my brother. So let's talk Creepshow. Let's talk about this film. Let's break down the 5 separate stories in this film. Now, we talked a lot about this film even prior to this. I know what your favorite section is. You know what my section is. Let's put that one on its own little section here. Let's talk about the remaining 4 stories in this film. We'll start at the beginning. It's Father's Day. Ah, yes. Talk to me, my brother. Father's Day. What a classic opening to this film, bro.
He wanted his cake. He wanted his cake. I mean, that one.
My cake.
That one had. I mean, it had George and Tom Savini's hands all over it. The look of the zombie, the characters, Ed Harris. Like when they were sitting there dancing, I looked at Adam and I'm like, y'all can't dance. And he's
that was
like,
the
"Man,
best part, though.
I know, but it's
They
like,
can't Don't let go.
because you're watching these rich people just sit there, waiting for their drunk aunt to get there. They're so prim and proper at the beginning, and the longer they keep waiting for the aunt to show up, the mother, her hair is all down, because she's feeling that alcohol that she's been sipping on. They're all hungry. Their stomachs are empty. They're on each other's nerves. So as you watch, as the night keeps going on, and you hear the story of Bedelia killing her father because, the father, I mean, he was horrible to her, but,
you bitch! You call me a bitch!
You're all vultures! Where's my cake?
But how obnoxious was that? Even the way it was shot, man, like it was so like the angles they used to kind of just piss you off, and the sound of him banging on the table consistently. Good stuff.
Yeah, it really was. It made you. It was jarring. It was like you're sitting there and you get why she's going nuts. And then towards the end of the night, when Sylvia's sitting there, like they're all kind of just looking at each other. She told him a story about how her sister killed the father, and you can see even the resentment with her and her kids as they're sitting there. Like they don't even want to be around each other. We just heard the story of what happens in a family, in this family, when they don't want to be around each other, and you're seeing it that it's kind of it's repeating with them.
And then you got good old Ed Harris as Hank. He's just sitting there like he'd rather be anywhere else but here. The only
want
thing that
those
interests him
matches.
is once he starts hearing about that story, that piqued his interest. And yeah, my man was too cool for school, bro. I mean, every time he
Well, he
would lit
wanted
up a
that
cigarette,
money. That's what yeah, I want those matches. I'm like,
yeah,
dude, he's like, I'm like, how the fuck
he
did
was
you
lighting
do
him on
that?
anything. The walls. This
Yeah.
guy. I mean, he pulled. All right, we're gonna get to that part, but he's also was probably the dumbest character in this movie, bro.
Yeah. You're gonna go walking through the cemetery. It's all foggy, looking for somebody you don't even know.
My favorite part was, and I actually um replicated this in JR's film, One Wrong Night, when I had him pick up the bottle and just, sniff it, say fuck it, take a sip. Ed Harris's character did this in this film. He just picked up a random bottle on the floor, bro, and was like, "Oh well, would you do that?" I mean, come on, I
Well, no,
love brew, but not that much, bro.
no, but remember that Sylvia kind of like I think she called him like trailer trash. So, he was
Yeah.
he didn't come from money.
Also,
So,
yes,
you don't waste out. I mean, I'm just gonna go on the you don't waste the alcohol. Now, will I, you know, if I just find that somebody, randomly in a street or in the woods, fuck no, I don't know what might be in there.
that's like Richard was like, yeah, Cass, he's your husband. He finds this bottle of liquor, takes a sip, but then he falls into the gravesite. And this guy had all the time in the world to get up.
Get out.
The tombstone slowly is making its way towards him. He looks up. He sees Nathan's corpse standing in front of him. And he's still like, what the hell? I mean, all right, I'll be shook too if I see that, but I'm going to get up. That's going to make me run even
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he stays there and he sees the thing inching closer and closer to pulverizing him. He just lays there. And when he dies,
I'm like, so does this zombie have like telekinetic powers that he's moving the headstone? Because it is a little confusing how the thing just kept slowly moving by itself.
yeah,
With him standing there,
I assume Nathan had powers because you can't.
powers.
I mean, let's talk about Nathan. I mean, that's the great John Amplis. My boy Dr. Fisher from Day of the Dead. That's Martin. He plays Martin himself. Martinez and Dawn of the Dead. I mean, this guy appears in like every Romero film, Night Riders as well. And it's awesome seeing here as a corpse. And you mentioned the makeup effects and the design of the zombie. Classic EC comic zombie, classic Savini, something you would see in Day of the Dead. And I love the synthesizers, whatever they did to amplify that voice. Because I was listening to it last night. I mean, that was pretty nice. And I had the sound up. And just the way, I want my cake. It just sounded so creepy to me this time.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, that sounds scary, bro. How to get that voice to sound like that?
It was like a reverb, a gurgling
gurgling
reverb,
sound. It sounded like he
gurgling.
was like underwater or something.
Yeah.
That was a great effect. I never heard a zombie sound like that before. But man, the visual and audio, again, this movie, top tier. And that leads us to that magnificent splash page at the end, full of color, with Richard and Cass in the foreground. We got Nathan holding Sylvia's head on a platter as a cake. Man, and then it transitions from like film to comic panel, and it transitions to our next story. Beautifully done. That's when I knew, wow, this movie's it's the real deal. And we didn't really touch upon this, but I'm going to do it real quick before we transition to the next story. The animation sequence in the beginning. The creep standing outside of the window of the young boy, and just the music by John Harrison. If you don't know, John Harrison's a longtime Romero collaborator. He's an actor, also director, writer. He's a music composer. He did the music for Day of the Dead. He composed the music for this film as well. That score is so haunting, and it's almost childlike in a way too. So good, so good. What you think about the score and the little intro?
I love the intro. Yeah, the intro's a classic.
Classic. That's pure EC comics right there.
When that intro comes on, you know you're about to watch Creepshow.
Let's talk Stephen King, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. Let me tell you, man, like Stephen King's not an actor, but every time he appears in Romero's films, it's always memorable. We all know his role in Creepshow 2.
Yep.
He was also in Night Riders. You haven't seen that. And again, he appears in his own segment here. What I loved about it is King's not the best actor, but for this particular role, he was perfect because of his facial animations. He felt sympathetic. and you felt his plight. You understand why he was so lonesome. He was, has the worst luck. Let's talk about this one. What were your thoughts on this section?
It's strong because of Steven. I mean, compared to all the other ones, it's not on the top of my list as far as my favorite ones for the whole series. But
Same.
however, because it is Stephen King, you still have to like it. And when it happened, Adam's like, you'd be stupid enough to go. I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't touch it.
Nah.
I'm like, I
put your
wouldn't go out
fingers
there and
up in your
touch
mouth
it.
too
Yeah,
after you touched it.
yeah, I wouldn't have done and I wouldn't have thrown water on it because if you throw cold water on something that hot, it's going to break or crack, which is what ended up happening. So I would wait for it to cool off and then try to find something to help me put it basically never putting my hands on it. So I would be that dumb. But as far as like how he just kept going, when he because of a fear of getting his fingers chopped off, and the whole his daydreams, how exaggerated they were. When the doctor pulls out the cleaver and he tells him, this is going to hurt a lot. Just because he didn't want to get his fingers cut off, he didn't go to the emergency room and instead stayed there to have that slow, agonizing death.
That daydream, that's classic Romero editing and
Oh,
his composition with the guy in the foreground, kind of like passing his fingers through that. It looked like I know it was a knife, but it looked like a butcher knife or something.
a cleaver. I
A
would call it a
cleaver.
cleaver. A cleaver.
Perfect. Yes. Passing his finger through the cleaver, speaking his lines, and you see, Jordy in the background on the hospital gurney, worried like, oh no. Excellent shot. The fact that you could laugh at Jordy, but by the end of it, you feel really bad for him.
You do.
So
You do.
I like that.
His last words, please let this one time not miss. I was like, God, that's terrible. Your luck's so
know.
bad that you're doing this so up close, and then you're so worried, and of course he doesn't miss. One of the things though I loved, that you had the Castle Rock sign, more of the Easter egg.
I caught it last night for the first time because I wasn't
really?
aware of Castle Rock when I originally saw this. I'm like, oh, Stephen King reference. There you go.
Yeah.
I never caught
That's what I'm
that.
saying. For the people who are starting to get into Stephen King and the Stephen King movies, there's always the Easter eggs in there, whether for intent of connecting them into the universes, or just to having this little thread that just puts all his works together. Spores or fungus, whatever this thing was,
Oh man,
was
blisters on his
spreading,
fingers.
and then no, I mean like the green stuff
Oh
itself.
yeah.
And then you're hearing the old almanac report, and it says everybody's gonna love this. Things are gonna be green pretty soon, and then you see the green and the Castle Rock side. So like that's where by being a Stephen King nerd, like I love like the little shots like that.
This is going to be extremely painful, Mr. Verrill.
There you go.
Yeah. There's two things when I think of this film, or this segment in particular, that always stick out to me is Stephen King's performance and also WWF back at the time.
Oh, dude, he's watching it on
He's
TV.
watching old school WWF.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I believe it's Bob Backlund versus Sika, I think I want to say, or Alpha, one of the Samoan
It was one of
SWAT
Samoan.
team. And just hearing Vince McMahon's voiceovers over Stephen King's character of Jordy just slowly unraveling. I'm like, I can't, because I'm a big wrestling fan. I grew up with WWF, and seeing the two together, I was like, holy shit, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. They had a big wrestling moment in this section for me. I love this so much when he jumps into the bathtub after getting warned not to do it. And all of a sudden, it transitions. Everything is covered in this green shit. I mean, there's foliage everywhere, right? And you're looking at his living room, but you're like, where is he? All of a sudden, you see the foliage start to move. And then
straight up.
when you figure it out, that's him. That's holy shit. He sits up, and it's with no CGI, no computers, a perfect transition. I never appreciated that until last night.
Yeah.
And again, I was a little high watching this movie for the first time, so I'm like, yes, I'm catching things I never caught before. The magic of marijuana.
I'm so high. It's like I'm like sitting here, and the beer is starting to kick in.
Now, brother, this was the episode that really blew my mind as far as the star power in this one episode between the two leads. We have Ted Danson, a young babyface Ted Danson, probably pre-Cheers. I didn't check. I would assume it's a little bit pre-Cheers right before it. And Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen's an actor where I associate him with like slapstick, the Naked Gun,
Naked
for
Gun.
example. But seeing him in this role here, he was scary. He also played a character
was.
called Richard. Yes, he was really. I wish he had more villainous roles, because this dude was actually frightening. And the fact that he came off as like an everyday guy here, he owned the entire island. He was a smooth talker, but yet he was so like vindictive, man. Such an evil character. And well, he mentioned he claimed my man was wearing corduroys. Something to Tide You Over is a story that I think a lot of people kind of sleep on it. It also stars Galen Ross, who is the lead from Dawn of the Dead, which a lot of people wouldn't realize because all you see is her head above the sand, and as she's in heavy makeup as the ghoul at the end. But again, just like with Nathan Gratham's character, these two entities that come forth to extract their revenge, head to toe covered in makeup, they look waterlogged, seaweed everywhere, and their vocal enhancement that they use, that reverb again, the gurgling, the more they talk, the more anxiety I got. I can't believe how awesome that was seeing that. We talked about the Stephen King episode prior to this. That's honestly my least favorite, but I could tolerate it because it is the shortest one.
Yeah.
But this one is one of the more longer episodes, and this one feels like it could have been its own movie. The psychological like torment that some of these characters went through, man. Talk to me about something to tide you over, man. What are your feelings about this one?
Well, I have the same thought as you with Leslie, because I don't want it to come across the wrong way. My husband Adam is white. So when I make some of these little comments, I say it to my white husband. I said, wow, he is a scary white guy. Because I'm used to the slapstick. I can't really recall anything serious I ever saw him in. I mean, Airplane and Please Don't Call Me Shirley. It's literally that's what we know him from. And seeing him in this one little role that he does, and he's pissed off. His woman is cheating with Ted's character. He tricks him into getting into this hole. I don't know about you. One time while I was a kid, I allowed myself to get buried. Now, I didn't go into a hole similar to how he was standing in there, but it was like what we did was we dug the hole for me to kind of like my butt kind of went in there, and then they put the sand on. So when you're sitting there with that sand, when you breathe out, the sand just keeps shifting down on you. So you're losing less of being able to actually catch this breath. I started panicking. I mean, I couldn't do it,
I'm claustrophobic.
well, that's the other part. My
I could
arms were in
never
there.
let anyone do that to me.
Oh
If
yeah,
I-
no.
If I was Harry in this instance, I would tell Richard, shoot me. He
Shoot
said
me.
it. He
At
said
this
it.
point,
shoot
shoot me.
You're gonna see Becky again. You're gonna see her again. He did see her again, to be fair, but I'll be like, nah, bro.
Yeah, shoot
And
me.
that's why I love this episode, because it really hits me in the feels, because I feel something. I feel anxious. I feel claustrophobic. I'm like, oh my God, stop. Just get out of this hole. I can't imagine. It's two things. I'm claustrophobic and I'm scared of the ocean. I can't imagine seeing all that water hitting you and you're about to just be under there in any minute now.
Considering I've been saved both on the east and west coast from drownings,
Hold your
I
breath.
too have a fear of the ocean.
Like, bloop, bloop, bloop the way. Wait, Richard, bloop. I'm like, this is fun.
I can hold my breath for a long, long time.
I love that the fact that they got Ted Danson to be submerged in this tank. They really put him in a tank to get that final shot of him taking his last gulp of air. Like, boop, and you see him like his hair is all like
Up there. Well, and that's when it went all red, and I went evil. So now you knew. So as soon as because as he's sitting there, like you said, he takes that breath. All of a sudden, the light around him goes all red, and I'm like, all right, the evil is coming.
Yeah, I love Richard's character because he was cold, calculating. He was a smart guy. He wasn't an idiot. He knew technology at the time because he kept talking about, oh, you keep your stuff in back condition. He's cleaning his off his VCR, his wires and shit. This dude put out a TV in the middle of the beach, tied to I don't know where he got the power from. So this guy was watching a live feed on the beach, bro, of his girlfriend, Richard's wife. I'm like, damn, how he do that? But that's besides the point, because this one segment gave me so much anxiety. I loved it. The intruders are slowly making their way into Richard's high fancy apartment, whatever that was. That place looked
Beach house.
awesome. That beach house
Yeah.
looked awesome, and I love how he had that long tank. And as soon as the ghouls were itching closer and closer, the fish scatter. Oh, what a shot! Romero he doesn't get enough credit for his compositions, because the way he filmed stuff is so unique. And I could look at that shot and I could tell you that is a Romero shot. The same way I could tell you that's a Carpenter shot. That's a Tarantino shot. Romero had his own style, bro. And I could see it and I can call it out.
It wasn't until certain moves and the fish that you realize that they're there.
The Dutch angles that are used, the freedom of making a film that's sort of based in comic book reality, he could get away with a lot of these crazy ass angles. The Dutch angles are always used to make you uncomfortable. And the fact you constantly see these angles in this one segment, you're like, wow, this is good stuff. He really thought ahead, and everything is done for a reason. Every shot, every composition. Michael Gornick, he did Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. He did everything. Guy's awesome. The camera work in this movie in general, pure George. I love it. All right, brother, let's talk about my second favorite segment in this entire film. E.G. Marshall, baby, let's go. They creep up on you. Are you a fan of roaches, Joe?
I am not. Some places when we were younger, where we lived, had some roach problems. And, when you hear the stories about turning on the lights and you're seeing like the roach scatter everywhere, I've actually seen that. So this little section here, I've seen them in big amounts. They fucking freak me out. Since kid, for some reason, I have been a huge fan of Raisin Bran. When he turned over the fucking container and the flakes came out and the roaches came out, I stopped eating Raisin Bran for a little bit. And then when I started again, I would make, like, back in the day, especially, like you had the munchies, especially.
Oh, me too. I love Raisin Bran.
Like, I now have to I would turn on the light and shake the box just to make sure.
Why was he blending it all together in a blender, though? What the hell was that all about?
Probably just to make it easier for him to eat. I don't know.
Heads are gonna roll.
That guy was an asshole.
I love this guy. He was such a despicable human being. What a character. I know we talked about this, but his hair. You're not a fan.
Oh my god. No, not at all. Because he looked insane. But it just showed you that his own OCD had made him look like a crazy ass person. Me, I love the wife that calls when she's all sad. She's like, "Then I heard the gunshot," and then he makes his little comment. She's like, "I hope you die."
I heard you went out with a bang.
Bang, yeah. Her phone calls were awesome. It's not a panic room; it's a hermetically sealed room.
Hermetically sealed room. You're a psychologist, and indulge me because I have no idea what that means.
Basically, it's just it would seal everything out. Like if you notice on the wall, there was even just an oxygen, so like that keeps everything out. Okay. Like that's why he felt so safe going in there. Yeah, well, he just forgot to check the blankets real quick because they were already hiding in there waiting for him.
The sound design in this episode.
The music score, it made me think of like just a bunch of fucking roaches crawling all over you.
The scariest part about this segment, the roaches were all real. None were fake. No rubber roaches. No CGI. No animatronics. All 1000% real roaches imported. Upson Pratt. Let's talk about this guy, bro. Some of my favorite and most quotable lines are in this episode.
From him.
I can't repeat like 70%.
Yeah, no. Very, very questionable stuff.
He was.
The guy was a racist, So
Mr. White, the guy, the exterminator, men in service jobs, men of yourself. men of color, you know, that guy. That's the guy from Dawn of the Dead, who's also in Night Riders. I just love their little interactions, especially when Upson Pratt is talking to him.
Yeah, and it's the way that the voices were distorted, you know, and then they would put their eye in there.
Like the fish, that's the fish lens. Yeah. They had
yeah,
the
it was
eye
just
all bulging out, their mouths all elongating. It's a
you're
great
gonna do it
shot.
now.
Yeah. Got you, Mr. Pratt. I got you. Next time you can take your wife and kid to the fucking Disney World on their fucking welfare check.
Orlando, Florida. I'm
That's
like,
my favorite
"Hey,"
part.
Like
The guy's like, I'm in Orlando, Florida. He's like, Orlando, Florida? I thought of you.
like, damn, they're like they've been knocking Florida for a long time. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Oh man.
I am from Connecticut. I live in Florida. I would never say I'm from Florida. It's crazy down here.
Bro, when the roaches started like bursting out of this guy's chest, and the sound effects and the music,
Yeah,
it's insanity, pure instant. And what I love is this guy's apartment was completely white, but yet it felt so dirty because of the fucking roaches, brother.
and it was because it was so white. Every time they would just you would see one little one
Yeah.
popping over here.
Yeah, you see him.
So you were always gonna see them.
I love how he was talking about, oh, everybody's always coming after me. I beat them. Then he goes to the roaches. I'll beat you too. Like he's talking to the roaches. Like I'll beat you too. Like there's some villains and shit.
Well, they were. I mean, they got them.
Well, the fuck zone. But we're rubber. Everybody's got the herpes these days. You're a psychologist. Would you call her Billy?
Oh, I love Billy. I have to say, obviously, like Rick said, out of these 5 stories, The Crate is by far the standout. It could be its own movie. Like that one could have been its own movie. Adrienne Barbeau delivered my second favorite role of hers because I love her in The Fog. She's so obnoxious. The worst part of it is she's oblivious.
Blonde lady that was in this segment. That's the one that Billy says, get us some drinks, they're dry. That was George Romero's former wife. That's Christine Romero. She was also in Dawn of the Dead at cameoing with George. She was in Night Riders as well. Again, this movie's cast is like, come on, man. Like, it's incredible. But look at the talent. Adrienne Barbeau. Okay, never mind that. You got Fritz Weaver and Hal Holbrook in the same episode, bro.
When I had posted that I was watching this, somebody in the comments put on there, just call me Billy. It's classic to this movie.
Savini had a great time filming that headshot.
Oh, of course.
That's a classic Savini headshot.
This is my wife Wilma, and she's like, "Oh, just call me Billy." Everyone does.
Hey, why call her Billy from Roma? That's weird, right? I never thought about that till right now.
Well, I mean, so
it could be
guy,
a nickname. I get it.
well, no, a guy named William could be called Billy.
Oh, good shout.
So that I mean,
You're right.
it's just yeah,
You're right. You're right.
She just has the female.
You're right.
Sort of version of William. She's married to a professor, and he's sitting there, and you know he's embarrassed by her. I'm the person you come talk to, and just the way she slurs it. And
oh man, the way she acted that out, you could tell she was like a little, inebriated. You know what I mean?
yes, it didn't sound acted, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with. This story is awesome. If I find some crate under some stairs and I hear a noise inside it, we're done.
I don't blame him because what would be alive in there since all this time, you know?
So you're telling me that you found a crate that's something that's been boxed up since 1835 and it makes a sound. And you're gonna open it because first of all, if it's been chained up, how the fuck has it been alive this whole time?
That's my point. So I'm gonna be thinking to myself, all right, I'm hearing shit.
Well, you're dumb.
You will be curious though, just like you said. It could be National Geographic magazines, but I'll be like, yo, all right. We're on opposite ends of the spectrum.
The box
I would want to open
how
it.
old it was.
And I would want to. I'll be too curious not to open it though.
And this is why
I would not still my hand in it though. I'll tell you.
Well, no,
Mike the janitor.
It's gonna stick out and grab you.
The monster Fluffy, another Tom Savini creation.
Oh, I loved it.
Such a great design. The fact that it was this really big upper torso with these little legs and What a great design it was. All teeth.
Well, and it reminded me of, I want to say Kilimanjaro. It had to do with baboons that, like a true
It did
story.
resemble of a baboon. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
see that's the
like I thought
inspiration behind it.
there was an it's an old movie. I think it was supposed to be based on a true story, kind of like a
Yeah.
horror movie ish. When that motherfucker popped out, I jumped. When you're younger and
Yeah.
you see this thing, dude, it scared the shit out of me,
Yeah.
and it was vicious.
I don't know if you're gonna get into it or not, but the music score during this scene, John Harrison kills it. The way the music goes to the actions, even when it Billy shuts the door and it crescendos and ding, ding. I'm sorry, you mentioned that section and it just that popped.
It was
popped up
because
in my
the whole
mind.
it was, like I said, this is, besides Ted Danson's one, this one could be a standalone movie.
I agree.
I loved it because, she gets, I think, what was it, milk or orange juice?
Oh, that was milk. It was like
It was
a
milk.
what was it
And then
like a white Russian or what the
yeah,
hell
and
was
then
it?
she pours the
Oh,
vodka in there.
oh man.
And then she's
I
reading
don't
it.
like milk as it is, bro. So that was
Well,
like, ooh.
and she's like reading this letter and she's loving it. She's like, "Oh, this is so good. This is dirty. Yes, yes, give me more." Like that's how she was reacting to it. It all crescendos to her showing up to what's supposed to be helping this poor girl that the professor tried to rape, to get her out. And he's slamming her against the crate. And he grabs her. He goes, "Just tell her to call you Billy."
Just tell her to call you Billy. They're slamming against the fucking crate
Oh my
over and
god.
over
I mean,
again.
it was so great. He couldn't keep it together when he's trying to tell the story. He's just cracking. She's like, "Why are you laughing?" He's like, "Oh, you're gonna see." Because he's just dying
Mind
of,
you,
oh, he's
just
elated.
before that, the way he was mopping all that blood off the ground, going again, it's played to the music that's being, that's composed, playing over this whole section. It's gross, but at the same time, it's like therapeutic. It's like, I don't know what it is. Like you're cleaning this blood off, and the floors are immaculate aside from the blood that's on the ground. I love that. I love it. And the music again, it just makes this entire section just pop.
Oh yeah. It is my second favorite performance of Adrian Barbeau.
Joe the psychologist. I ain't gonna lie, man. I was kind of rooting for the monster. I felt bad for him, man. This crate monster has been sleeping all these years. He's hungry as hell, bro. I don't blame him
He's
for eating
he's
these motherfuckers, bro. They got him
he's
chained
full.
up.
He's full now. But you have to think about it though, that if they had found this monster and then kill it and then do an autopsy on it, they're gonna find DNA of his wife. So he had to get rid of the crate and the
Well,
monster.
man, what do you say? I'm carrying this monster with the remains of three human, well,
Hmm.
two human beings in Wilma.
And Wilma.
Yeah, the dialogue in this, man. Oh my god! Like when Dexter goes, or he's telling Henry what happened, and he's like, "I could be blamed," It's like,
He's
that's how
like,
his
"You're
voice.
not." He's
Yeah,
like, "You're not." But he said it too.
yeah,
He said it was the perfect
yeah,
plan. It
yeah.
worked out.
So as Henry realizes this and he's listening to Dexter tell the story, the wheels are already in motion how to get rid of Wilma. So
Yep.
by that time, he knew and he wanted to drug Dexter. So he gave him, he offered him another drink and Dexter's like,
He
oh no.
roofied him.
He's like, oh, I'm blasted out of my gourd. Like, yo,
One more.
who says that I'm blasted out of my gourd? I love the
Back
dialogue
in
in
the
this.
day, that's back in the day, lingo. So I've
or
been
he's like,
blasted out of my gourd.
he sees Dex taking that shot and Henry's like, last time I saw someone do that was in the movies. I love the dialogue in this, bro. I think this is the perfect film to encapsulate feeling that they were going for in this movie. I know that I would say Father's Day probably a little bit more as far as the EC comic side, but this was more the George Romero film was the create as far as the editing, the sound design, the composition, everything about it. It just screams Romero. The dialogue, as far as dialogue, I would say, the E.G. Marshall segment was more Romero because that's his style.
Yeah.
But this one here, as a whole, the crate, you said it, standalone film. The monster is so original. I like the fact that they kept them hidden for the most part. You didn't want to see them too much And then when that poor guy was just trying to get the bite marks off of Mike's the janitor's shoe, Charlie, right? And Charlie got fucked up, bro. He got pretty fucked up. So yeah, this movie is great. I think the crate is probably the one driving factor that takes this movie over the top
Oh, yeah.
for me and makes
yeah.
it the classic that it is today. It's the perfect storm of all these talents at right place, right time, the right era. Closing thoughts, man. I could talk about Creepshow for hours, but let's wrap it up, man. All right, Joe, the psychologist. I'm gonna throw it to you first. Let's close it out. What's your score on this one, and any final thoughts you want to give us about Creepshow, man? Let's go.
I mean, obviously, I saw this in the theaters. I've seen this so many times. This is an Omega for me. I mean, it's George Romero. It's, the godfather of horror, Stephen King. You couldn't think of a more perfect duo. The best part is that it was 5 different stories. So it wasn't one long, full movie. You're going to have your parts you're going to love. You're going to have the ones you're going to hate. You're really not going to hate any of the stories within this anthology. The whole movie as a whole, it's entertaining. The only one that I can say as far as horror anthologies, we have like all these little stories. The only second one to this is Trick or Treat for me.
As far as a rating, Omega, absolutely. If I could even go higher, I would. This is a very influential film. I guarantee you, this film inspired many filmmakers and a lot of artists in general. Because this is artistry. This is filmmaking at its best.
These were based on horror comic books that were put on the screen for you.
All right, my brother. With that being said, if you, the viewer, have not yet seen Creepshow, what are you doing? Go out and watch it. But if you haven't watched it, like my man said, pardon the expression, but you fucked up.
And we are out.